framed her.
In a town where everyone knows your name, silence can be a death sentence. When a city councilman is found murdered behind a small town library, the last person who argued with him becomes the perfect suspect. But as the lies tighten and the whispers grow louder, one woman learns the most dangerous killers aren't the loud ones, they're the quiet ones no one ever notices. The first thing I noticed was the silence, not the peaceful kind. No birds, no distant traffic, no wind through the trees, just a heavy, waiting quiet like the town itself was holding its breath. I was halfway through unlocking the front door of Hollow Creek Public Library when I saw the police cars, 3 of them, parked crookedly along Main Street, lights still flashing red and blue even though the sun was already up. Colors bounced off the bakery windows across the street, turning fresh bread and coffee into something surreal, almost obscene. My name is Alina Carter, and in a town as small as Hollow Creek, Illinois, everyone knows exactly who you are before you even say hello. I tightened my grip on my keys. Don't look nervous, I whispered to myself. You haven't done anything wrong. That would turn out to be a lie, just not in the way anyone thought. A uniformed officer spotted me and raised a hand. Ma'am, could you come over here for a moment? My stomach dropped. I glanced at the library door, then back at him. Running wasn't an option. In Hollow Creek, running just makes things louder. I work here. I said as I approached, lifting my keys slightly like proof of innocence. He nodded, polite but guarded. We know. Miss Carter, right? That was the second thing I noticed. He already knew my name. Behind him, yellow tape stretched across the alley beside the library. The same alley I walked through every morning to avoid Mrs. Wilkins and her endless complaints about late fees. Something dark stained the concrete near the dumpsters. I stopped breathing. Is someone hurt? I asked. The officer didn't answer immediately. He glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. When was the last time you were here? Yesterday evening, I said, around 6. I closed up. With anyone else I know. I always close alone. That was true, and apparently that mattered more than it should have. A man in a suit stepped out from behind the tape, mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of face that never forgot anything once it decided it was important. Detective Mark Reynolds. I knew him, everyone did. He'd grown up here, left for Chicago, then came back when his career stalled, or so the rumors said. In Hollow Creek, people don't just notice when you leave, they notice when you come back broken. MS. Carter, he said, voice calm, almost gentle, I'm afraid I need to ask you a few questions. What happened? I asked again, my voice thinner now. He studied me for a second too long. We found a body. The silence came back, heavier than before. Who? I whispered. Reynolds didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped aside and let me see past the tape. I recognized the shoes first. Brown leather, scuffed at the toes. I'd seen them pacing the library aisles 100 times. Oh my God, I said. Thomas Hale, city council member, local hero. Man who had personally threatened to shut down the library 3 weeks ago due to budget reallocation. The man I had screamed at in front of half the town. The man lying dead in the alley beside my workplace. I staggered back, and the officer caught my arm. Easy. I didn't. The words tangled in my throat. I didn't do this. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. We haven't accused you of anything. But his eyes said otherwise. They escorted me into the library anyway. Sat me at my own desk like a criminal borrowing familiarity. The smell of old books did nothing to calm me. Reynolds placed a small evidence bag on the table. Inside was my scarf, gray wool, a little frayed at the ends. I'd lost it last night. Or so I thought. We found this near the body, he said. Care to explain? My hands started shaking. I must have dropped it. When? Yesterday, after the council meeting. The one where Thomas Hale had smiled coldly and told me, people like you don't decide what survives in this town. Reynolds leaned back. Several witnesses heard you arguing with him. Loudly, he was trying to shut down the library. "And you told him you'd make him regret it." I opened my mouth, closed it again, because I had said that. Outside, sirens wailed faintly as news spread the way it always did here. Fast and merciless. Reynolds stood. "For now, you're not under arrest, but I'd recommend you stay available." "Detective," I said, my voice breaking, "someone wants this on me." He paused at the door. "Then you'd better hope you're right." When they finally left, I sat alone among the shelves, surrounded by stories where truth always surfaced in the end. In real life, I wasn't so sure, because in Hollow Creek, justice didn't care about innocence, and someone had just made me the perfect suspect. By noon, the whole town knew. Hollow Creek didn't need social media to spread news. It had looks, lingering ones at the grocery store, conversations that stopped the moment you walked into a room, the kind of silence that judged you louder than words ever could. I left the library under temporary closure due to investigation, and drove home with my hands clenched so tight on the steering wheel my knuckles ached. Every red light felt like an accusation. Every passing car felt like it was slowing down to get a better look at the woman who might have killed a city councilman. My house sat at the edge of town, small, white, forgettable. I'd chosen it for that exact reason. Privacy was easier when people didn't have a reason to notice you. That illusion was gone now. There was a car already parked out front. I braked hard. For half a second, panic surged through me. Police again, handcuffs, neighbors peeking through curtains. But when I looked closer, I recognized the rusted blue sedan. Maya Brooks, my best friend, the only person in Hollow Creek who still felt like mine. She stepped out as soon as I killed the engine. "Alina," the way she said my name, soft, careful, made my throat tighten. "I heard," she said, pulling me into a hug before I could protest. She smelled like cigarette smoke and vanilla lotion, normal things, anchors. "They think it was me." I whispered into her shoulder. "They don't know it was you," she corrected. "That's different." It didn't feel different. Inside, Maya poured us coffee while I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the faint crack running down the wall. I'd been meaning to fix it for years. Funny how small flaws suddenly felt monumental when everything else was falling apart. "They found your scarf?" she asked. I nodded. "Right next to him. Do you remember losing it?" "Not exactly. I remember leaving the council building angry. I remember walking toward the alley behind the library because it was faster after that." "Nothing important." Maya frowned. "That's convenient for them." She hesitated, then said quietly, "You fought with him a lot, Alina." "I fought with everyone who wanted to kill the library." "Yeah, but Thomas Hale liked to collect enemies." "The difference is," she stopped herself, "the difference is I don't matter. I finished. He did." A knock hit the front door. Both of us froze. Maya shot me a look. "You expecting anyone?" I shook my head. The knock came again, sharper this time. I stood, my legs heavy. When I opened the door, Detective Reynolds stood on my porch alone. No uniformed officers, no flashing lights. That scared me more. "May I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. He took in the room with a practiced glance. Clean, modest, nothing that screamed killer. I wondered how many homes he'd stood in like this, measuring guilt in furniture and shadows. I spoke with the coroner. He said, skipping pleasantries, time of death was between 7:30 and 9 p.m. My heart stuttered. I was home by 8. Anyone who can confirm that? No. Maya shifted behind me. Reynolds noticed her. "And you are?" "Maya Brooks," she said. "Alina and I talked on the phone around 8:30. I turned, surprised. She hadn't mentioned that. Reynolds made a note. "Thank you." He looked back at me. Cause of death was blunt force trauma. "No weapon found yet." I swallowed. I pictured Thomas Hale's smug face, his voice. "People like you don't decide what survives. I didn't kill him." I said, "I didn't say you did." Reynolds replied, "But someone wanted it to look personal." "Why me?" He held my gaze. "Because you were loud, public, angry. And because your job gave you a reason to be near that alley every night." When he left, Maya exhaled shakily. "He thinks you did it. He thinks I could have." I said, "That's worse." After Maya left, I tried to sleep. I failed. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number, you should have stayed. Quiet, my blood turned cold. Another message followed. Now you're paying for it. I stared at the screen, my reflection warped in the glass. This wasn't just about Thomas Hale. Someone was watching me, and they weren't done yet. I didn't show the messages to the police. That choice would haunt me later, but at the time it felt like survival. In Hollow Creek, information was currency, and I had none to spare. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table until dawn, replaying every moment of the last few weeks. Every argument, every smile that lasted a second too long, every person who'd gone quiet. When Thomas Hale walked into a room, by morning, one thing was clear. Thomas Hale hadn't just made enemies, he'd made plans. The first crack appeared where I least expected it, at the library. The police allowed me back inside under supervision to collect personal items. Detective Reynolds stood near the entrance while I moved through the stacks, each step echoing too loudly. "Take your time," he said, "but don't touch anything unnecessary." I almost laughed. Everything in this building was necessary to me. When I reached my desk, I noticed something odd. A book wasn't where it should have been. Municipal Funding Records, 2018-2023. A boring title no one ever checked out, except Thomas Hale had, 3 times in the last month. I remembered because he'd made a joke about it. Knowledge is power, right? M.S. Carter. I pulled the book out. Something slipped from between the pages and landed softly on the floor. A folded receipt. Storage Unit C-17. Paid in cash, monthly. I felt Reynolds' eyes on me as I picked it up. "What's that?" he asked. "Trash," I said quickly, shoving it into my pocket. He didn't push. That was mistake number 1. The storage facility sat just outside town, forgotten and dull. I shouldn't have gone alone, but I did. Unit C-17 smelled like dust and oil. Inside were boxes, files, and a single hard drive taped beneath a shelf. The files told a story Thomas Hale had buried carefully. Misappropriated funds, falsified reports, names of local officials quietly benefiting from reallocation, including one I didn't expect, Emily Grant, the town clerk, quiet, polite, invisible, the woman who'd worked at City Hall longer than anyone else, the woman who'd always defended Thomas Hale publicly, the woman who had access to every record in Hollow Creek. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again. "You found it, didn't you?" My heart slammed. "You're not as stupid as he thought." "Emily," I whispered. She was only one who knew where those records were kept, and the only one who would have known my scarf was missing. I didn't make it far. When I stepped out of the unit, Emily Grant stood between me and my car, holding a tire iron like it was nothing more than an inconvenience. "You shouldn't have come here," she said calmly. Her voice didn't shake. That terrified me. "He was going to expose you." I said. She sighed. "He was going to expose everyone. And leave me to take the fall. You killed him. He underestimated me," she replied, "just like they all do." The sound of sirens cut through the air. Emily's eyes widened. "What did you do?" I stopped being quiet. I said. Detective Reynolds stepped out of his car, gun drawn. Behind him, 2 more patrol cars arrived. Emily dropped the tire iron. Later, Reynolds would tell me he'd followed me, that he'd finally trusted his instincts instead of the evidence laid neatly at my feet. Emily confessed that night. She'd waited in the alley, used my scarf to stage the scene, sent the messages to keep me scared and silent. I kept the town running. She said during her statement, "No one ever saw me." I wanted them to look at you instead. The charges against me were dropped within a week. The library reopened a month later. Hollow Creek moved on, the way small towns always do, by pretending nothing really changed. But I did. Sometimes, when I walk past the alley, I feel the silence again, heavy, waiting, and I understand something now. In towns like this, monsters don't roar. They whisper, and the quiet ones, they're the most dangerous of all. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.